The phone slipped from my hand. It clattered against the pavement just as the first heavy drops of October rain began to fall. I just stood there, watching it skid to a stop near the toe of a man's scuffed leather boot. I didn't have the energy to care. That's what they don't tell you about grief. It's a physical weight. It makes even bending down feel impossible. He picked it up. His fingers were long, careful. I saw the deep cracks spiderwebbing across the screen before he did. He turned it over, and his face changed. The lock screen was a picture from a lifetime ago. Me, wrapped in Liam's arms on the Brooklyn Bridge, my head thrown back laughing, his smile bright against a summer sky. A sky I couldn't even remember the color of anymore. It's okay, I managed, my voice a flat, rusted thing. I just wanted to get home, to the silent apartment that still smelled like hospital antiseptic and untouched dreams. But he didn't just hand it back. He looked at me, not the quick, dismissive glance of New York, but a real look. His eyes were the gray of a storm over the Hudson, and they held a quiet, recognizing ache. "The screen's pretty bad," he said, his voice softer than I expected. "There's a place on 8 that can fix it while you wait." I took the phone. Our fingers didn't touch. "Thank you," I whispered, and I walked away, the broken glass in my hand feeling like the least of what was shattered. That should have been it. A New York second. A blink. A stranger in the rain. But New York has a way of folding in on itself when you least expect it. A week later, I forced myself back to the park. Liam loved the ramble. I was trying to walk the paths we used to walk, trying to feel something other than the hollow chill in my chest. I got lost. Of course I did. The leaves were a riot of fire, but to me they just looked like everything was burning. And then I saw him. He was sitting alone on a bench by the pond, shoulders slumped, staring at a single discarded glove on the ground in front of him. It was a focused, profound stare, as if that glove contained the entire universe of his sadness. My feet stopped before my mind could. He looked up. The recognition was instant, a flicker in those storm cloud eyes. "Screen holding up?" he asked, a tentative, almost smile. "Barely." I gestured weakly to the empty space beside him. "Mind if I—" He shifted over. "Jack. Emma." We sat in a silence that wasn't awkward. It was the silence of two people who have run out of words for their own pain. The ducks quacked, children shrieked with joy, the city hummed its distant song, and we just sat. "My wife left it," he said finally, his eyes never leaving the lone glove. "One gray knit glove. She took the other one, moved to Chicago, took the cat too." He let out a breath that was half a laugh, half something shattered. "I keep finding traces of her. A hairpin by the sink, this glove. It's ridiculous." My throat tightened. His confession was so ordinary, so deeply human. It wasn't the grand tragedy of mine, but it was a loss. A life dismantled one piece at a time. "I lost my husband," I heard myself say. The words felt strange and raw in the open air. 3 months ago. Cancer. Jack finally turned his head to look at me. No pity, just a deep, shared understanding. I'm so sorry, Emma." I nodded, tears hot behind my eyes, but they didn't fall. "The silence in my apartment is so loud, Jack. It screams at me." He was quiet for a long moment. "The silence in mine just echoes." From that bench, something fragile and quiet began. It wasn't a date. We didn't call it anything. We were just two people who recognized the same profound quiet in each other. We started meeting at that bench. Then for terrible, comforting cups of diner coffee at 2 p.m. on a Tuesday, we walked. We talked about nothing. The weird headlines, the best slice of pizza in Manhattan, the sudden chill in the air. And sometimes we talked about everything. The guilt of a good day, the way a song can ambush you in a drugstore, the terrifying freedom of being left behind. He told me about the planned family trips they'd never take. I told him about Liam's awful, wonderful dad jokes. We didn't try to fix each other. We just witnessed. We held space for the broken pieces. One Thursday, he texted me, "The Met, roof, 4 p.m. I'll be the guy looking at the skyline, not the art." I went. We stood at the rooftop edge. The entire city sprawled before us in the golden late afternoon light. The breeze was cold and clean. "I used to bring her here," he said quietly, and all I felt was angry, that she got to keep the memories too. "What do you feel now?" I asked, my heart a drum against my ribs. He was silent, thinking. "I feel present." He turned to me, his gaze steady, clear. "With you, I'm not stuck in before or after. I'm just here." The truth of it hit me like a physical wave, a relief so profound it stole my breath. That's what he had given me, an anchor to the present, a reason to look at the skyline and actually see it. I looked at his profile against the setting sun, at the careful way he held his own hurt, and I felt something unfamiliar and terrifying stir in my chest. It wasn't a betrayal. It was a tiny, defiant shoot of green in frozen ground. He reached out slowly and brushed a strand of hair the wind had whipped across my cheek. His touch was feather-light, a question. I didn't pull away. I leaned into it, just a fraction. The city glittered below, a million lights fighting off the impending dusk. And for the first time in a year, the future didn't feel like a dark, empty room. It felt like a breath held, waiting to be released. Winter in the city arrived with a silent, stubborn snow. It coated the grime and glitter of New York in a clean, forgiving white. But inside me, the thaw was the real story. It was slow. It was terrifying. It was Jack. We never made a plan. It was never, "we should." It was a text, walking the High Line. It's empty in the snow. And I'd pull on Liam's old coat, the one that still smelled faintly of him, and go. Jack would be there, a dark figure against the white, and he'd wordlessly hand me a paper cup of hot chocolate, too sweet and absolutely perfect. We didn't hold hands, not yet, but our shoulders would brush as we walked the elevated tracks, the skeletal gardens sleeping under frost. The silence between us was no longer about absence. It was becoming its own kind of language. One evening, he asked me to meet him at the Strand bookstore. "I want to show you something," was all he said. I found him in the labyrinth of the philosophy section, a place Liam would have never ventured. Jack held a worn copy of Marcus Aurelius. "Open it," he said, his voice low. I did. On the flyleaf, in faded blue ink, was a handwritten inscription. "For my love, my stoic. Remember, the obstacle is the way. Always, Clara." My breath caught. I looked from the intimate years-old script to Jack's face. "You found this here?" He nodded, a sad, gentle smile on his lips. "Last week. She must have sold it after she left. I almost bought it. I stood here for an hour, holding it." He took the book from my hands and carefully slid it back onto the shelf, between two strangers. But I put it back. Her story with that book is over. It doesn't have to be mine. The meaning of the gesture washed over me, warm and profound. He was choosing to leave a piece of his past right there on that crowded shelf. He was making room. It gave me the courage to do what I'd been avoiding. The following Saturday, I asked Jack to come to my apartment. My pulse was a wild thing in my ears as I let him in. Liam was everywhere. In the framed photos, in the ugly modernist lamp he loved, in the specific way the light fell in the living room at 4 p.m. Jack didn't hover. He didn't look uncomfortable. He just took it in, his gaze respectful, quiet. I started, my voice trembling. I need to put some things away. Not all, but some. He didn't say, "It's time," or "You should." He simply rolled up the sleeves of his flannel shirt and said, "Tell me what you need." So, together, we began. I took down the vacation photos from the mantel, my hands shaking. Jack carefully wrapped them in newspaper, his movements deliberate and kind. We packed away Liam's favorite coffee mug, the one that said, "World's okayest husband." I cried then, hot, quiet tears that felt less like drowning and more like release. Jack just handed me a tissue and kept wrapping, giving me the space to feel it all. When we were done, the apartment didn't feel empty. It felt lighter. There was space on the mantel, space on the shelf. The ghost was still there, loved and cherished, but it was no longer crowding out the very air. We sat on the floor, surrounded by boxes, leaning against the sofa. The winter sun was weak but bright through the windows. "Thank you," I whispered. He looked at me, and in his gray eyes I saw my own reflection, tired, raw, but clear. "Thank you for letting me help," he said. Then his hand found mine on the floor between us. His fingers laced through mine, warm and solid and real. It was the first time we truly held hands. It wasn't a beginning, but an acknowledgement, a confirmation of everything that had been quietly growing between us through shared silences and hot chocolate and surrendered books. My heart didn't pound with panic. It settled. It felt like coming home to a home I'd never seen before. Spring came. The cherry blossoms in the park exploded in a riot of pink, a spectacle of relentless, beautiful life. Jack and I were on our bench, the one by the pond. We were talking about nothing, about everything. He made a terrible pun about the ducks, and I laughed, a real, startled, joyful sound that felt foreign and wonderful in my own ears. The laugh faded into a comfortable quiet. He was looking at me, really looking, and the world seemed to shrink to just this bench, this man, this moment. "Emma," he said, my name a soft exhale. "I'm not trying to replace anything. I couldn't if I wanted to." "I know," I said, my throat tight. "But this," he continued, his gaze unwavering, "this thing between us, it's real, and it's my second chance. I think it might be yours too." He didn't ask for an answer. He simply stated the truth we had been living for months. The love we had found wasn't a betrayal of our pasts. It was a profound honor to them. We had loved, and we had lost, and we had been shattered. But in each other, we had found a safe place to piece ourselves back together, creating a new mosaic from the old broken bits. I reached up and touched his face, tracing the line of his jaw. He leaned into my touch, closing his eyes for a brief second. When he opened them, I saw it all. The past heartache, the present peace, the hopeful, terrifying, beautiful future. I saw my second chance, reflected right back at me. I didn't kiss him then. Not yet. Instead, I leaned my head against his shoulder, and we watched the new ducklings, fuzzy and determined, paddling fiercely after their mother in the cool, sparkling water. The city's noise was a distant rumble. The sun was warm on our skin. We had both been lost in the cold, but we had found our way, step by hesitant step, to a different kind of warmth, to a love that was born not in spite of our scars, but because of them. A New York second chance, discovered in a city of millions, on a bench by a pond, in the quiet, resilient space between two broken hearts that learned, slowly and bravely, how to beat in time again.